Welcome back to the France 24 debate. I'm Hala Mohiuddin. Now, he's the candidate who promised to win, but recent polls suggest he's losing. And in a move not normally associated with winners, Donald Trump is shaking up his campaign team for a second time in 2 months. The Trump shake-up has raised eyebrows, with many asking, what exactly does this reveal about the state of the campaign, the state of the race, and even the state of the country itself? Well, to discuss this in more detail, from Los Angeles in California, Republican strategist John Thomas is joining us this evening. Thank you very much for being part of the France 24 debate. And of course, here in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome back Jean-Éric Brana, a US politics specialist and author of Who Wants to Destroy the Republican Party. Thanks to you for being part of the debate also. And remember, you two at home can take part in this evening's discussion with the hashtag F24debate. But first, what's behind Trump's reshuffle, which has left many wondering if he's even trying to deliberately sabotage his own campaign? Catherine Viette has the story.
It's been a bad few weeks for Donald Trump. The latest polls show him not only trailing his opponent Hillary Clinton nationally, but also in key battleground states. In response, the candidate has implemented a staff shuffle, bringing on a new campaign manager and chief executive. But political analysts say don't expect a kinder, gentler Donald Trump.
Donald Trump said a while ago that he could become presidential at any time during the campaign cycle. We haven't seen him do that yet. He appears now to be turning to people who like the Donald Trump the way he was. I'm not sure for the electorate as a whole or for a winning coalition that that's the right strategy.
In fact, some say the shakeup is a deliberate move on Trump's part to sabotage his own campaign. On his blog, documentary filmmaker Michael Moore says Trump never really wanted to be president of the United States. Instead, it was part of a plan to drum up a bigger paycheck during negotiations for his TV show, The Apprentice. But when Trump made his remarks calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers, the network distanced itself from the billionaire and promptly canceled his show. But by then, Trump had garnered a devoted following, and now he's the Republican Party nominee. With just 3 months to go in the race, time is running out for Trump to turn around his campaign.
Catherine Viette with that report. Let me first come to you, John Thomas, in California. You're a strategist with the Republican Party. Would you say that this is a sign the campaign's in trouble, 2 reshuffles in as many months?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there are multiple signs the campaign's in trouble. First and foremost, the fact that almost every single poll has Trump down anywhere from 4 to 10 points. I mean, they needed to make a shuffle. And kudos to the campaign for making that change. Look, I think these 2 hires, both with the new campaign manager and senior advisor, are actually smart hires. And here's why. If Donald Trump let this election be about Donald Trump, he will lose. If Donald Trump can make this election about Hillary Clinton and exploiting her high negatives, as well as the country's dissatisfaction with the direction of the country over the last 8 years, Donald Trump can win. These 2 new hires do 2 things. First, Kellyanne Conway, the new campaign manager. She is a pollster by trade who specializes in the female vote, a major problem Trump has. And secondly, Steve Bannon, the senior advisor with Breitbart News, is known as a relentless attack dog. And if he can harness the campaign and Trump's energy away from Trump and to attack Hillary Clinton and make this a referendum on Hillary Clinton, that could be just what he needs.
But let me put it to you, John Thomas, that every time Trump expresses himself, be it on Twitter or when he's addressing crowds or in TV interviews, he automatically makes it about himself. A case in point would be his latest tweet missive, "I am Mr. Brexit."
Right, and he has to learn to be more responsible with his Twitter. But I will remind you that in the primary campaign, Donald Trump, yes, there was a lot about Donald Trump, but Donald Trump destroyed over 16 competent foes by destroying these people like low-energy Jeb, little Marco Rubio. And he tore them apart because he was able to focus long enough to drag them down. He has it in him, but we have to see if he can do it 100% of the time and not just 10% of the time.
Let me put it to you, Jean-Eric Brana. This is is this the right move for Trump to make, bringing on these two new people? Is he taking the campaign in a direction which will allow him to make this about Hillary Clinton and not about his own gaffes?
Yeah, I share John's point of view totally, because Trump needs to be Trump to win. There is a very narrow path. This is a difference I've got in the observation of this campaign. The path is very narrow. Trump was able to attract people who were reluctant to follow politicians. They wanted somebody who was different. When he asked Manafort to come in his campaign to be his chief of staff, that was a move to give something to the party. So he was becoming somebody from the establishment. That means he was quitting his natural move to be somebody different, not being a politician himself. And this certainly was not accepted by the grassroots. So this had to be corrected very, very quickly. Moreover, we didn't mention that, but Manafort met many problems, especially because he was accused of some connection with Ukraine, and it was necessary to stop that immediately.
Yeah, but he's still on the campaign.
Yes, he's still on the
part of
campaign, but not on the front row. He's got now a second place because Bannon will be on the front row and Conway as well. So we go back to the basis when Corey Lewandowski was the chief of staff. That was something that was very close to what Donald Trump is deeply inside. So I think that Donald Trump will come back to the fundamentals he had at the beginning. But it doesn't mean that he can win. I said the path is very narrow one. So this is my difference with John. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe this is the end of Donald Trump's campaign because, yes, of course, he was able to defeat 16 very prominent adversaries, but it's easier to defeat people in the primary than defeating only one in the general campaign, because now he will have to talk to Hillary Clinton and to the country about very serious topics. And what was very striking with Donald Trump was that he lacked any ideology, he lacked any platform, he lacked any program. So that would be very difficult to convince the people about the very difficult problems they may have in their own life.
Okay, John Thomas, he makes a point there, the fact that people's hatred of Hillary Clinton can only go so far. He still has to convince people he's presidential, and there's very little that we've seen thus far, you could argue, that puts him in that presidential camp.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump is going to have to look a little bit more presidential, but I would argue that Donald Trump's real task is to show that he's not Hillary Clinton. If he reminds voters as to why Hillary is crooked, she can't be trusted, she's in it for herself, and quite frankly, offers the American people says, if you are unhappy with the direction of the country, which according to Gallup Tracker, it's over 70% of Americans say America is on the wrong track. And so all Donald Trump has to say is, I am a change candidate. If you don't like the direction we're going, I'm your best shot. In fact, Donald Trump is largely running a populist campaign. He's not running a conservative firebrand campaign. He's running a populist campaign, which works in a change election. But what Hillary Clinton has done very well is she has defined Donald Trump early as out of control, unfit, unpresidential. And Donald Trump kind of fell into that definition. He has to shift it back, and I think your guest is right. The window is so narrow for Donald Trump to achieve that. We'll see. But one thing I will say is this cycle is anything but predictable. If you had asked most of the experts in the primary if Donald Trump was going to win the primary, everybody would have said you're crazy. So Donald Trump is a surprising candidate, and this cycle is unpredictable.
Well, indeed, it's impossible to try and make predictions in this stage. It's certainly, one would say, a fool's game to do so. But is there an argument that Donald Trump isn't wanting to go moderate at all? He's wanting to stay on the populist track and counting on the same level of anger to take him to the White House that, for example, pushed through the Brexit votes that we saw in the UK?
I think you're 100% right. That is exactly right. I make all the time the comparison between the Brexit and Donald Trump. You know, all the elites said the Brexit was the worst thing. It was disastrous. It was bad for the economy, unfit for the UK. But they voted for the Brexit because they felt that they had to do something. Something had to change. And while that may not have been the perfect solution, it's better than the track that they were going on. And that's where Donald Trump's at. It's the same thing. He may not be the perfect candidate. And I think he'll be the first to admit that. But he's going to say, we have to get tougher. We have to do something. And he's running a populist wave. I don't think you're going to see a more moderate Donald Trump at all.
Jean-Éric Brana, how then do you think the opposing campaign should deal with this? Is it time for Hillary Clinton's campaign to shake up, for example, to combat this populist wave?
I don't think Hillary Clinton has anything to do against Donald Trump, because
Really?
something that has not been said. You talked about the Brexit question, and John said, yes, I think we can compare. My opinion is different. I think we cannot compare because there is not a single issue in the United States, and the most important issue that is coming very soon is the problem of the Senate and the House. And that means that many people will seek for re-election in the different states, and of course these people will need to support or confront Donald Trump's ideas in his own side, I mean. And we know already that many candidates have got problems in Wisconsin, in North Carolina. Even in Florida, Rubio is in very dangerous position. There is certainly a toss-up that is coming in Florida, or McCain in Arizona. Can you imagine that? All those candidates will have to determine themselves if they want to follow Donald Trump and say they back Donald Trump as a president or not. So they will make a campaign or a counter-campaign. So we have to take this into consideration. That's why it's not comparable to what we had with the Brexit. There was only one movement. You were for or against. It's a little bit more complicated in the United States.
But the way that some people might consider looking at this is that with the Brexit votes, you had a lot of angry people who had never voted before who were coming out to vote. This parallels with the US is that there are very many angry people who would never get involved in politics before and who are now going behind Donald Trump. So
Here too, I think this will not happen. This happened for the primaries because here there was a clear choice inside the party, and the consequences didn't seem that important for the people. They have the feeling they could do that and there would be no consequences. I'm pretty sure that many people did not expect Donald Trump to be the final candidate. And even if he was, they knew they had a final choice at the general election. Now it's totally different. It is for their future and the future of their children.
John Thomas, what do you say to that? In the primaries, it's different, but in the general, people are going to come to their senses and vote the other way.
Well, I mean, I politely disagree with that analysis. I look at the primary. Donald Trump earned more votes in the primary than any Republican nominee, I believe, almost ever. Certainly more than Romney. I think it was more than George Bush. There's real general enthusiasm in his base. So he has to focus on turning those people out again in the general election. But you look at those down-ticket races. Rubio, in fact, in Florida, Marco Rubio is running ahead of Donald Trump. He's leading the ticket. It's actually quite remarkable. John McCain's contest, I don't think, is an applicable comparison because John McCain was in trouble 2 years ago. Everybody's known he's been in trouble. Look, I think while the Brexit was a more simplistic vote, I will concede that. Voters care about very simple dinner table issues, jobs and the economy. And arguably, we are worse off now as it relates to the economy than we were 8 years ago. The middle class has been losing manufacturing jobs to overseas. They feel that the establishment isn't addressing that. And as it relates to terrorism, Americans are scared. And Hillary Clinton doesn't appear to be tough on those issues, and Donald Trump can speak to those issues and harness the anger and fear of the electorate, I think, better than Hillary Clinton can.
But he's harnessing anger and fear and not necessarily putting forward solutions, which is what the head of the CIA has said. It's what countless numbers of senior officials have said. I mean, my point is this a sustainable campaign tactic to focus on fear instead of focusing on substance?
Well, I think first and foremost, he has to remind voters why we need to change from the current direction, the establishment. So and Hillary Clinton is the establishment. So that's his number one job. But I think you've seen the last couple weeks, he's been giving scripted, prompted speeches on major issues, laying out his plans. He gave an economic speech in Detroit last week. He gave a speech on ISIS and terrorism this week. So I think he is laying out a plan. But of course, he has to remind voters why we have to make a shift from the current direction.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll have to leave it there, unfortunately, but I am very grateful to both of you gentlemen for coming on the France 24 debate this evening. John Thomas, GOP strategist in Los Angeles, California, and Jean-Henri Brana, author and political expert. Thank you to both of you for joining the discussion. And of course, that debate continues online with the hashtag F24 debate. Do stay with us here on France 24. Lots more news coming up after this.